in that conversation. Like, it has to do with international trade and commodity products.
Today in class we have Craig Hall, owner of Equator Coffee Roasters in Almonte. Craig's going to join us and talk about his views on sustainability. As we prepare for Craig's visit, let's get some background on the basics of coffee.
Esta es nuestra propuesta, una propuesta de vida. A través de esta forma es como nosotros podemos resolver muchos de los problemas: cambio climático, falta de principios y valores. Nuestra máxima energía estamos llevando a nuestras generaciones, a nuestros niños. Estamos llevando a nuestros niños principios, valores, el fundamental, el amor. Y si no hay amor, no va a haber lo que nosotros deseamos, que es una mejor calidad de vida para nuestros hijos, para nuestros socios, para nuestros amigos, nuestros aliados, nuestros consumidores. Debemos estar todos juntos en un solo equipo. Y así es como es el universo. Es uno solo. Si yo hago mal, llega allá. Si yo hago bien, llega allá. Porque dijo el maestro: si siembra maíz, maíz cosecha. Si siembra cosas malas, malas cosas vamos a recibir. Entonces, es un ir y venir. Solos podemos ir rápido, pero juntos podemos llegar más lejos. Esa es nuestra propuesta y hacia eso le apostamos.
Just give us an overview of maybe your background and company, but also your view on that issue of the global North-South, and how our decisions as chefs, the consumer purchasing, how is that important, or how does that link back to the producer at the very ground level?
That video is very moving. Equator Coffee Roasters is a coffee roaster, in the Ottawa area, and we provide fair trade and organic roasted coffee. But those those aspects of fair trade and organic have really shaped our company. And my degree is in international development, so this is where my interest in coffee began. Was how do we connect the North and the South? How do we bridge this poverty that's we're very wealthy in the North and very poor in the South? How do we connect the dots, and how can I do that in my context? I mean, I'm privileged to be a Canadian with understanding and assets in Canada. So I realized I can do from here the best work I can do for these farmers is to sell their coffee. So that's our mission. That's what we're trying to do. And but we're really proud, and we have high standards for the coffee we buy. And there's a whole bunch of things going on that have nothing to do with agriculture or food. And that's, I guess, the message on a broader perspective, is that a lot of the food industry has nothing to do with health or taste or local purchasing. It is just this huge machine, and it's a global industry, right? So those are huge forces to deal with. So basically, we would just put off the C price of coffee, and we're not using that as a primary benchmark for how we purchase coffee. So there is ways to operate, and I guess for an example of Equator is that there are people doing unique things in the marketplace, and sometimes it's hard to work with them or find them. But if that's a goal, to find good value for products that have some ethical foundation, then you likely feel more satisfied in your work and in what you're presenting to people. The principles of them of fair trade are long-term direct trading relationships, payment of fair prices, no child or forced or otherwise exploited labor, workplace non-discrimination, democratic and transparent organization, safe work conditions and reasonable work hours, and investment in community and development projects. So these aspects are how our cooperative partners in the South, those are the values they operate by. And we know that. I know there's skepticism in the marketplace about what's actually fair trade because everybody says their coffee is ethical. And the reality is that there's a lot of spin going on. So you need to do your homework and find out a little more information so that, you know, you're smart enough to figure out if, you know, this is a real impact or just a marketing line, right? There's coffee produced by, you know, large plantations, and Nestle has huge farms in the Philippines. You never hear of Philippine coffee because Nestle buys it all, makes it into instant coffee. But they have a huge volume of coffee. There's these big companies, right, and big organizations. But 70% of coffee in the world is produced by small independent farms. So that's a huge amount of product. And the same thing would apply to any, you know, commodity product or grain product or hops for your beer. Like there's small companies and people you can deal with. And there's always a balance between cost and you know, a boutique type of product. So you have to kind of navigate that as best you can. And what's your business philosophy for what you're going to do in the long run? How are you going to, you know, put some parameters around the decisions you make to try to make them more beneficial for the whole community? And if you do that, like if you have some structure in your head about how you're going to do that, it's easier to say no to things and say, no, that's not the right direction. Let's go a different direction, or let's do a little more research. You know, it's going to help you define who you are and where you want to go and what kind of food you want to make. If you have some parameters. I know it's hard too, because you'll be stepping into the work environment and you'll have to do what your boss says and buy from that. But I would say, you know, when you have a chance to express yourself, you should have a good idea what you want to be and who you want to be.
Great, thank you. So one question I would have, just to put things in perspective to people, if I'm buying coffee at my grocery store for $15 a pound for a package of whole beans that are roasted, whether it's locally or through a big conglomerate, what does the guy in the video we just saw, what do those people make sort of per pound? What does that community or that producer get back to as an equivalency or a share, a fraction of that $15?
I would say that in our model where if it's $2.20, for example, I would say about $2 goes to the farmer and 20 cents or whatever portion that the organization needs to run itself and also to do with the projects that they have already voted on as a community. Like we're going to build a school or we're going to, you know, build a well. So they have funds that they use as a community that are brought in through the co-op, and they're voted on by the community. So those are the aspects. But really, you're still asking about $15 at the grocery store. There's a lot of layers in this thing. Like we buy coffee in US dollars. So right there's 30% that we add on, 35%, depending on exchange rate. And then we got to get it shipped here, right? So that adds up. And then we got to roast it, package it, pay for a building and staff. And so that brings us to our wholesale price. And then the grocery store marks up the price, right? So, and actually the markup by the retailer is usually the largest piece. If you break it down. Now, grocery stores are typically pretty reasonable in their markup, but you know, health food stores, specialty stores, cafes could mark it up more. Yeah.
But I guess what I was sort of curious about your model with what you're doing with your cooperative and your relationship, how much is that different than the regular, you know, just a regular price that those producers would get if they weren't working with an organization like yours? Is it significantly different that they would get per pound?
That's a very good question. Yes, it is significantly different. I mean, if just to frame it for you with a little example, if you didn't have a truck and you picked your coffee cherries, they have to be processed or they go rancid in the heat, right? So you basically would take whatever cash the guy with the truck will give you. And it would be pennies compared to the cooperative model. And the cooperative, the stronger that they get, the more resources they have. And many of them start with just buying a truck. Like that's their first level organization that helps everybody, because then they can bring the coffee directly to market and pay and get paid what the market price is. But that's not a fair trade price, right? That's a commodity price based on the C market in New York. And that's what the buyers would pay. And in countries of origin, they pay for the cherries, right, at a way different price than you'd sell the green coffee as a finished prepared product for. So it's really little. Like I was talking with somebody yesterday, and they're saying in Rwanda, in this scenario where there's no co-op organization, the farmers get paid $1 for 2 kilos of green, which is 5 kilos of cherries, which is nothing. Like it's not enough.
Less than 50 cents a pound then for the equivalent of a green cherry.
Yeah. And that's in a high quality market. Like that's at a higher, like African coffees are typically a higher price than Central American coffees. But,
okay, thanks. The other question I have so again, this class is called International Cuisine. So if I ask somebody, think of Switzerland, think of a food product, they might say chocolate. If I said Italy, they might say coffee. Well, how do we reconcile the fact that Italy doesn't grow coffee, but yet their identity is around coffee? How do you, like in our discussion, in our class discussion about international cuisine, is it fair to say that coffee is an example of Italian food and Italian cuisine?
that's a good question. I think it is. Yes. I think it depends on your view of the world. Like colonialism was a time where these European European countries influenced so much, and now I think we have a combined culture. Like it's a more of a mishmash. One of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about this class was Peruvian cuisine. In South America, everybody wants to go to a Peruvian restaurant because they have really good food. They have a flair. They have a talent. They have an interest in creating, amazing food. And that doesn't exist in Chile, for example. I was in Chile and the food's very good. Like it's unbelievable what they can produce, but it's actually pretty plain. It's like meat, potatoes type of food, where just north of that in Peru, they're doing amazing cuisine. So I don't think that the Peruvians today would be interested in cuisine without the influence from the Europeans. I think that we should probably, appreciate, all of us, that there's all these different influences and kind of these different expressions of cuisine or culture. I think are awesome, right? You want to experience it. There's something about that food that reflects in the people's culture or values as well. So I think it is an expression of culture, but our culture is mixed. It has these different influences, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's fine. It's good.
So last question is, let's just say the students are interested in this and they're intrigued by, again, this relationship, global trade, whether we're talking about coffee or cocoa or other products. Is there a way that they could get invested, either participate and go to in this case coffee producing country and understand, like be on the ground and understand the complexity of it and maybe a bit simplified for themselves, and then potentially, therefore, as you're doing, when they open their own business or they have an influence back home, they have a much deeper meaning or understanding of it rather than it's just coffee?
Yeah, there is a couple of opportunities. I'm sure there's more if you look around for them. But Co-op Coffees, when we return to normal, does operate. They have some trips planned to produce organizations that they're welcoming other people to come with them, including like from our members' staff. So I could send some staff along on a trip like that. And there was on the calendar, I think 3 spots a year where you could join in. That would be that would be accessible to you. You would need to connect with me, and I probably need to know a little bit about you, but that's accessible. The other thing we do regularly when we're not in COVID is we take teams to Nicaragua with school box, and we're planning a trip for November, and we work on a school, but we get immersed in that community and the culture. The working on the school is important, and it's fun. It's a great organization that works with communities. So usually you work alongside local people, shoveling dirt and stuff, or helping make concrete. And they're investing in the school for their community, and we're there to help them and encourage them. But we also there's a bunch of cultural things that we do during those trips. So that's an opportunity.
You'd want to share anything, last word you want to share with the students?
Yeah, I think each of us needs to have a passion. And if your passion is food, then you should do it as best you can, and we need that expression, your expression in our community and in our culture. This is why we're doing what we're doing, we're trying to provide room for these people to share what their passion is, which is like the human farm, right? That's the term they use, and growing people is really what they're trying to do.